What would you do if lately it seems like every single job you run and every job that is given to you by your employer seems to lose the shop money, or at least that's what they're telling you after every single job you run? When is that a company issue, and when might that be a you issue? What's up, guys? Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine Tool back here again for Practical Machinist, and today on Machine Shop Talk, we're going to be diving back into the Practical Machinist forums to help tackle this issue that a poster came on with. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so as promised today, we are going to be diving back into the Practical Machinist forums for this one. A poster came on to the shop management and ownership subforum, and they sounded like they were kind of at the end of their rope. It sounded like a very unfortunate situation that was really getting to them. We'll link that thread in the description below so you can go check it out yourself. Interesting thread, bit of a sad read, but interesting to discuss anyway. To quickly summarize their post, they said that the poster came on and said that they had been a machinist at a company for the last 5 years. So this company sounds like they're fairly small. Sounded like it was about 10 to 15 employees, with about a quarter of them in the front office and 3/4 of them on the floor. You know, pretty standard layout for a small shop like that. Maybe a little front office heavy, but I digress. And what's happened is, over the last few months, their shop that they work at has gotten very, very slow. They describe it as most of the other employees in the shop on the floor. If a job used to take a day, they're taking their time with it, maybe stretching it out to a day and a half, because there's nothing else to do. This is a whole discussion on its own, but essentially what they're trying to do is not get laid off. You know, at least they're doing something. If they're standing around, they're a lot more likely to get laid off. I get it. Really not a great situation to see or be in. I've seen it, you've seen it, we've all seen it. Anyways, we're gonna move on from that. But the shop is very slow. And anyways, they've been handed 2 jobs. The poster has been handed 2 jobs over the last little bit. The first job, they went through and programmed this whole job. You know, it sounds like it's a job shop. So they went through and programmed the whole job with finger cam. So this is all manually writing the G code on the machine, and it ended up taking way longer for this job to get done than apparently it was quoted out for. They said the boss came to them when the job was done and said, "Hey, what's going on? I quoted this job out for 7 hours and you took 4 days with it." You know, this is bad. Clearly the shop is losing money on that job if they quote 7 hours of labor plus material and there's 4 days. That's not a job that's even breaking even. That's a loss. So the poster wanted to explain to the thread, or to the forum, why this happened. They said there were a bunch of reasons, and we'll kind of run down them in order. First one, management is very, very hard on staff not to break or damage tools, because management and ownership there says tools are expensive. Secondly, the tooling that they do have, like insertable mills, some of their milling bodies, drilling bodies, the poster was saying that a lot of them are either damaged or they're just generally clapped out. You know, a lot of these tools have, you know, you can baby them and make them last a long time, but they have lives. And if you crash a tool a couple too many times, it's never going to cut the same way again. Thirdly, it sounds like the rest of the equipment in the shop is generally poorly maintained. They describe situations where, you know, instead of just being able to go grab a vise off the shelf, clean and ready to go, they can spend an hour or more trying to get all the equipment they need for the job that isn't broken, filthy, or, you know, caked full of oil. So they burn a lot of time just trying, not even getting the job set up, just getting the equipment to set up the job that is functional. Lastly, they said because they don't have a CAM system, when they're programming in G code, I don't know what kind of machines they have, but we're going to assume they're vertical mills, they're not making any, because they're using finger code, they say they're doing a lot of point-to-point cutting. We'll get into what point-to-point cutting is in a little bit, but essentially the problem is they're not getting any kind of optimization with their programs from a CAM system. So apparently this first job, after it took 4 days when it was scheduled for 7 hours, they were handed another job. So this is job number 2. Again, this one just got blown out of the water. Apparently it was quoted for 7.5 hours, and they tried to be as fast as they could, but the poster said it still took a day and a half. So, you know, double plus what it should have taken according to the front office. Apparently this is a shop where they get a time card for each job. I've seen this before, and it'll have Operation 1, Operation 2, Operation 1, front side, Operation 2, whatever, deburring, and they're given all those operations from the office. And they're supposed to write down their time in each one, how long that operation took. They said with this job, you know, they had all the problems from the above mentioned list or before mentioned list, but now they also, when they were going through and writing down their time for these operations, the front office didn't write down some of the operations on there. I think they said they didn't put any time down on there for deburring or grinding or sandblasting. I can't remember what it is. But there were processes that the machinist had to go do that weren't accounted for at all when the person quoted this job out according to the traveler card. At this point, the poster says, you know, at the end of the day, it makes them feel extremely undervalued. They're frustrated. They're getting told over and over again, you are the reason we're losing money. You lost money on this job. And the poster is kind of just at the end of their rope. They said, you know, to the forum, what do I do? Now, the forum had a lot of excellent answers to this, but I think there's a few things that we can kind of pull out just from their post before we dive into what the forum said. Firstly, the poster said they are working in a shop that is currently slow, very slow. As someone who works, you know, I work on the floor, but I also work a lot in the office doing quoting, doing sales, doing outreach. I can tell you that if a shop is currently very, very slow, the front office is not doing something correctly. Either they're not doing enough outreach to get work coming in the door, either they have alienated their customer base, either they have, you know, quoted things too high and they're not getting them. So essentially what they're now doing is they're probably being pretty aggressive on pricing to get any work in the door they can to keep themselves afloat. This means they're probably charging a lot less than they're supposed to or should to make money on the job, which then translates into putting unrealistic expectations on the guys on the floor. You know, this job should have been 500, I got it for 250. Now instead of doing it in 5 hours, you got to do it in 2 hours so I can still have a margin. It just doesn't make sense. If they got a lot more work coming in, if they, you know, were doing proper sales, if they were building relationships properly, you can be a lot more picky with the work you take on. You're not just taking any scraps that come your way. So that's the first problem I see here, and something that the machinist has no control over in this situation. Secondly, the bit about the tools. As mentioned, they said that the office is super, super hard on them about not breaking tools, not chipping inserts. Constantly breathing down a machinist's neck about tooling is a lot like blaming a race car driver when he doesn't win a race. Or you know, if a race car driver's in a race and they say, hey, don't burn too much gas, but I still want you to win this race. You can't really have it both ways. Tooling, no matter how you look at it, are consumables. You will, even if you use an M mill perfectly, every day, the proper speeds and feeds, and you don't crash it, that M mill will wear out. You can regrind it as many times as you want, and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. At the end of the day, it is a consumable. Same thing with milling bodies. You can make them last a real long time, but eventually, they're gonna wear out. You know, this is a stupid and careless way to put this pressure on your machinists to focus more on being an accountant, saving the company money on tooling, on consumables, rather than doing the best they can for the job. Now, as a lot of you guys will point out, you know, there's levels to this. If I'm using a 1-inch solid carbide end mill this long, and I'm trying to take seconds out of an aluminum program, and I'm blowing up 1-inch diameter end mills constantly, yeah, do you know what? I'm gonna blow that job out of the water because it's just not made for, you know, that kind of expense, for $5,000 in tooling for a job that only cost, you know, we only got for $1,000, when you could have used one tool, not broken it, and made lots of money on the job. You can definitely blow jobs out of the water if you're not careful or you're just being careless. But breathing down the neck of your machinist to preserve the edge for as long as possible as opposed to accepting normal wear and tear, it's backwards thinking, and they're never going to be able to get ahead that way. Thirdly, why is a shop that is clearly trying to get work out the door as quickly as possible relying on their guys to hand program everything? I know there are a lot of wizards out there that can program a lot of stuff very, very quickly in FingerCam. I know there's guys that can use conversational programming, on a ProtoTrack or, some of even the more advanced machines to get what you want out of that program very, very quickly. But at the end of the day, the guy said they're using point-to-point cuts for a lot of things. To explain what point-to-point cutting is, that means they're programming just about every move they're doing with a cutter as a move. So move cutter to here, move cutter over, plunge, cut to here, cut to here. It's point to point. They're just telling it where to go. That means they're not getting any kind of pocketing. They're not getting any kind of optimized tool pass, no kind of radial chip thinning, no dynamic milling, no adaptive clear, whatever you want to call it. It's the way they're doing it is not the best way you could even use hand programming. And it's no surprise that they're not making money when they're doing this. You don't need to spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the best CAM software out there to get the advantages of a CAM software. There are a lot of very affordable CAM softwares out there, today that will give you a lot of the benefits of CAM software. Now, is it going to be the best in the world? No, but it's better than doing point-to-point cutting through G-code. Again, we're seeing a huge lack of investment from the company in the success of their shop. Lastly, they said that they spent a ton of time trying to find equipment that isn't broken, isn't clapped out, isn't dirty. Again, you don't need to have the best equipment in the world. You need to have functional equipment to run a machine shop. It can be cheap. It can be cheap. Are you going to get as much durability out of those? No. Are you going to be able to push it as hard as you could, premium tooling or premium work holding? No. But even cheap stuff is better than broken stuff or not maintained stuff. So again, we're seeing a really weird shift in the way this company is spending money. So ultimately, to go to what the forum's advice was on this, I kind of wanted to touch on this last because everybody pretty much said the same thing that I was thinking. The poster here should run, not walk away from this shop. It's crystal clear that either the management is clueless, maybe they just don't know and they think this is how you should run a shop, or they're, I don't want to say malicious, because malicious is something I don't like to ascribe to people without knowing them. But either way, they're not going to change. Things are going badly here, and they're not willing to do the things that this company needs to survive. There's a bare minimum of investment that's required in a machine shop, just like any business, in order to make it function properly. This shop is not doing that. If you're seeing a shop be this tight on tooling and being this tight on not buying CAM software or even the $2,000 stuff, that means the back end of this shop, like the books, are probably terrible, and this shop probably isn't long for this world anyway. With the way the market is out there these days, with the way the labor market is these days, guys, that's a tongue twister, there are so many opportunities out there for machinists, especially guys with experience, to be able to shift to a shop that maybe values things like giving you the tools to succeed. I would recommend, the forum recommended, this person go try to find a new gig, try to find one that is actually a well-maintained shop, and then do you know what? If they're still getting the feedback that they're losing money, then they know that maybe they need to do some retraining. Maybe they need to hustle better. Maybe they need to get focused again. But with the shop they're at, even a good machinist, I don't know how they could be making the shop money and being successful in that environment. So it's impossible to tell if this is a them problem or a shop problem, because all the errors I can see coming from the shop, even if this guy was great, I don't think he could be successful at this shop. In any case, guys, I'd like to know what you think about this situation. Have you ever seen a shop like this? Have you ever been in a situation like this where you're constantly getting hammered by your boss saying you're losing money, you need to go faster? What did you do, and what advice would you give to this poster? And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. You take care.